Wraith stood once more, watching as lightning laced the skyline outside his penthouse window. The storm never left him. He simply learned how to wear it differently. Now he wore suits instead of armor, ran companies instead of kingdoms. But the silence inside him remained. Centuries of stillness settled into his bones like fog, never loud, but always there. He had built empires in that silence, amassed fortunes, bought and sold companies, properties, technologies. Mortals were endlessly inventive, and Wraith had learned early on that influence in this world came not from the heavens, but from money, timing, and control. So, he adapted. Now, he owned one of the most discreet yet quietly powerful private equity firms in the world, Cavion Holdings. He preferred companies others had given up on, ones rusting under bad leadership or cracked foundations. He would buy them, strip them to their bones, and rebuild something cleaner, smarter, stronger. It was almost therapeutic, but it wasn't fulfilling. Not really. Power was no longer his addiction. Order was. Structure gave him something to measure, predict, keep the chaos of immortality in check. He kept his circle small. Solomon, his chauffeur and oldest confidant, was one of the few who knew anything close to the truth. Everyone else saw the polished exterior, the quiet CEO with intense eyes and storm gray suits who never raised his voice, but somehow owned every room he walked into. Every morning, Wraith followed the same ritual. Wake before the city. Run until his lungs reminded him he still had limits. Read through international reports, review deals. Watch storms from the rooftop. And once in a while, when he craved something unstructured, something mildly unpredictable, he went for coffee. That morning had been no different, at first. He stepped into the small Starbucks tucked between two skyscrapers like a secret. He liked this one. It wasn't sleek. It was loud, mortal. The air always smelled like cinnamon and burnt espresso. No one looked twice at him here until she did. He had been standing in line, scrolling through a file on a mid-tier tech company hemorrhaging talent. Distracted, disconnected. And then the scent of vanilla and almond caught his attention. Warm, sharp, and unexpected. A voice followed it, clear and annoyed. "Excuse me, you're in my spot." He looked up. She stood there holding a drink tray like a shield, eyes narrowed at him. Brown curls framed her face, and there was a smear of lipstick at the corner of her mouth. She looked like someone who had sprinted here in a rush but refused to let the morning win. Wraith blinked. "Your spot?" "Yeah, that corner seat by the window." She pointed. "That's mine. Every day, I don't care if you're a tech bro or some finance king, move your laptop." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Not the usual kind that followed him like a shadow, but a different kind. Charged. She didn't recognize him. Didn't flinch, didn't care. He stood, slowly, curiously. "You've claimed territory in a public establishment," he said, amused. "Welcome to Manhattan," she said with a shrug. And just like that, she sat down, as if he were just anyone. He stayed longer than he meant to that morning, watching her out of the corner of his eye while pretending to read earnings reports. She muttered to herself as she typed, sipped her drink with the stubborn pride of someone who refused to admit it was too hot, and made a face when her phone buzzed. He didn't know her name yet, but that small moment, quick, unassuming, mortal, lodged itself under his skin like a splinter. Later that evening, when Solomon pulled up to the penthouse and Wraith stepped into the quiet, he found himself thinking not of mergers or numbers, but of almond and vanilla and a girl who didn't care who he was. He didn't know it yet, but her name was Aria, and she had just changed everything.